How Prison Labor is the New American Slavery. And most of us unknowingly supported June 13, 2016 at 11:58 p.m. If you buy products or services from any of the 50 companies listed below, and you likely do, you are supporting modern American slavery. Prison American slavery was technically abolished in 1865. But a loophole in the 13th Amendment has allowed it to continue as a punishment for crimes well into the 21st century. Not surprisingly, corporations have lobbied for a broader and broader definition of crime in the last 150 years. As a result, there are more mostly dark-skinned people performing mandatory, essentially unpaid, hard labor in America today than there were in 1830. With 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prison population, the United States has the largest incarcerated population in the world. No other society in history has imprisoned more of its own citizens. There are 500,000 more prisoners in the U.S. than in China, which has 5 times our population. Approximately 1 in 100 adults in America were incarcerated in 2014. Out of an adult population of 245 million that year, there were 2.4 million people in prison, jail or some form of detention center. The vast majority, -86%, of prisoners have been locked up for non-violent, victimless crimes, many of them drug-related. Big business is making big bucks off of prison labor. 700px-u.s. _incarceration _rates _1925 onwards. While prison labor helps produce goods and services for almost every big business in America, here are a few examples from an article that highlights the epidemic. Whole Foods. You ever wonder how Whole Foods can afford to keep their prices so low? Sarcasm. Whole Foods coffee, chocolate and bananas might be fair trade, but the corporation has been offsetting the high wages paid to third-world producers with not-so-fair wages here in America. The corporation, famous for its animal welfare rating system, apparently was not as concerned about the welfare of the human animals working for them in Colorado prisons until April of this year. You know that $12 a pound tilapia you thought you were buying from sustainable American family farms? It was raised by prisoners in Colorado, who were paid as little as 74 cents a day. And that fancy goat cheese? The goats were raised and milked by prisoners too. McDonald's, the world's most successful fast food franchise, purchases a plethora of goods manufactured in prisons, including plastic cutlery, containers, and uniforms. The inmates who sew McDonald's uniforms make even less money by the hour than the people who wear them. Prison labor too. Walmart, although their company policy clearly states that forced or prison labor will not be tolerated by Walmart, basically every item in their store has been supplied by third-party prison labor factories. Walmart purchases its produce from prison farms, where laborers are often subjected to long hours in the blazing heat without adequate food or water. Victoria's Secret, female inmates in South Carolina sew undergarments and casual wear for the pricey lingerie company. In the late 1990s, 2 prisoners were placed in solitary confinement for telling journalists that they were hired to replace Made in Honduras garment tags with Made in USA tags. Call center. AT&T. In 1993, the massive phone company laid off thousands of telephone operators, all union members, in order to increase their profits. Even though AT&T's company policy regarding prison labor reads eerily like Walmart's, they have consistently used inmates to work in their call centers since '93, barely paying them $2 a day. BP, British Petroleum. When BP spilled 4.2 million barrels of oil into the Gulf Coast, the company sent a workforce of almost exclusively African American inmates to clean up the toxic spill, while community members, many of whom were out-of-work fishermen, struggled to make ends meet. BP's decision to use prisoners instead of hiring displaced workers outraged the Gulf community, but the oil company did nothing to reconcile the situation. D0CCD81D9B7 ed 552418 F3 ed 9106 BUD. The full list of companies implicated in exploiting prison labor includes Bank of America, Bayer, Cargill, Caterpillar, Chevron, Chrysler, Costco, John Deere, Eli Lilly and Company, ExxonMobil, GlaxoSmithKline, Johnson & Johnson, Kmart, Koch Industries, McDonald's, Merck, Microsoft, Motorola, Nintendo, Pfizer, Procter & Gamble, Pepsi, Conagra Foods, Shell, Starbucks, UPS, Verizon, Walmart, Wendy's. While not all prisoners are forced to work, most opt to because life would be even more miserable if they didn't, as they have to purchase pretty much everything above the barest necessities, and sometimes those too, with their hard-earned pennies. Some of them have legal fines to pay off and families to support on the outside. Often they come out more indebted than when they went in. Prison farms, aka modern plantations, Prison 88 in places like Texas. However, prison work is mandatory and unpaid, the literal definition of slave labor. According to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, prisoners start their day with a 3:30 a.m. wake-up call and are served breakfast at 4:30 a.m. All prisoners who are physically able are required to report to their work assignments by 6 a.m. Offenders are not paid for their work, but they can earn privileges as a result of good work habits, the website says. 6,886,370-2,595-45 D8 BBD 4-774,657,793 x 352. Most prisoners work in prison support jobs, like cooking, cleaning, laundry, and maintenance. But about 2,500 of them work in the Texas prison system's own agribusiness department, where they factory farm 10,000 beef cattle, 20,000 pigs and 250,000 egg-laying hens. The prisoners also produce 74 million pounds of livestock feed per year, 300,000 cases of canned vegetables, and enough cotton to clothe themselves and presumably others. They also work at meat packaging plants, where they process 14 million pounds of beef and 10 million pounds of pork per year. Trouble the cow. While one of the department's stated goals is to reduce operational costs by having prisoners produce their own food, the prison system admittedly earns revenue from sales of surplus agricultural production. Prisoners who refuse to work, again, unpaid, are placed in solitary confinement. When asked if Texas prisons still employ chain gangs in the FAQ section, the department responds, "Chain gang too. No, Texas does not use chain gangs. However, offenders working outside the perimeter fence are supervised by armed correctional officers on horseback." Similar prison farms exist in Arizona, Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Louisiana, Mississippi, Ohio and other states, where prisoners are forced to work in agriculture, logging, quarrying and mining. Wikipedia says while the agricultural goods produced on prison farms is generally used to feed prisoners and other wards of the state, orphanages and asylums, they are also sold for profit. In addition to being forced to labor directly for the profit of the government, inmates may be farmed out to private enterprises, through the practice of convict leasing, to work on private agricultural lands or related industries, fishing, lumbering, etc. The party purchasing their labor from the government generally does so at a steep discount from the cost of free labor. Dar es Salaam convicts. Related, kids spend less time outdoors than prisoners. Tags, Against Civilization Agriculture.